Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I am John Ryan. I can be found at John Ryan Sports One, and I'm pleased to have our NHL genius with us today. Chris Wassel is in the house. He can be found at Chris Wassel DFS on Twitter. That's WASSEL in capital letters. And first name, of course, is Chris, CHRIS. So, Chris, I couldn't wait for this show to start today because, not being near hockey guy as I am NBA and college hoops and college football type of guy, but I do follow it with sincere interest. But last night had to be one of the worst bad beats I've ever even heard of, and that involved one of our plays on the show last night. We went 2-2. To recap that quick, we won with the Spurs, we lost with the Memphis Grizzlies, we lost with the St. Louis Blues, and I was pretty bold, I must say, in taking University of Tennessee Martinsville, who is arguably the worst shooting team in college basketball and probably one of the worst in the last 10 years. But they were playing a team named Austin Peay, who they can't guard their shadow, let alone a real basketball player. I don't think Martinsville shot over 35% from the field in any one game, but last night they shot over 50% and they almost hit, I believe, 49% from threes, and as an 11.5 point dog. And I must say, I'm not trying to brag, but I did say that I really thought that they had a chance to win the game. They actually did. So that play felt pretty good. But over the four plays we had, we were 2-2 for the night. But I want to hear your take on this horrible bad beat with the Blues.
Yeah, I mean, Mama often joked there'd be days like this, or in this case, nights like this. But last night, not just with the St. Louis game, but if you looked up and down across that board, and a lot of guys that I know, particularly in the NHL betting realm, and we're just talking like this doesn't feel right. It still doesn't feel right. And then it dawns on you. It's the night after the Super Bowl. It's like a full moon of full moons. Things just happen that can't be explained. Teams that should allow 5-6 goals don't. Teams that normally score 4 goals score 2. Or 3 in the case of Edmonton against Ottawa of all teams. Suddenly the scoring dries up. Matter of fact, I mean, if it wasn't for that last minute, or I should say last second goal by Arizona, that's another over that doesn't hit last night. And that's where we get back into it here. St. Louis is up 3-2 with less than a minute left. One of the best bettors in New Jersey that I know, and he's not on Twitter really all that much, so it's kind of like he said, it's kind of good that way sometimes. And this was a no doubter. He had a 5% on this as well as quite a few people I knew. He turned the TV off. Cardinals sit and betting. You want to babysit that thing to the finish line. You want to nurse it along. You know it's dicey, especially when there's a 6-on-4 involved because Arizona had pulled their goalie. But you thought when the puck was dumped in the corner with less than 5 seconds left, it's over. You can't get it to the front of the net in time. Wrong. Less than a second left. Clayton Keller banks the puck home. It's tied. St. Louis did have their chances in overtime. It wasn't like they did. They had about 3 or 4 pretty good chances, and one that I thought for sure was going in, and it didn't. And then a kicker for everybody that's involved betting this. David Perron scores first in the shootout, and people are like, well, you know what? Maybe I have hope here. And then St. Louis didn't score the rest of the shootout. Connor Garland and Clayton Keller again scored the shootout for Arizona, and that thing's over. And you see people just losing their minds on Twitter and social media, and rightfully so.
It's unbelievable.
There were a
It
lot of
really is.
bad beats last night. It's just this one was just the king of bad beats probably for a month.
Yeah, it's unimaginable what the odds would be. I bet you it's close to 100,000 to one that you lose that game. I mean, it was zero point 0.7 seconds, and when I first heard this, Chris, I thought I misheard how much time was left. I thought maybe instead of zero point 0.7, it was 7 seconds or 70 seconds, but it was truly zero point 0.7. And then, as you know, the review took much longer than necessary because it was clearly a goal. But that's a tough way to lose some change for sure. But it's as we always talk though, it's just one game, just like the Super Bowl should have been one game for everybody, not betting 10 times your normal amount. I really did enjoy the Super Bowl, not because I was on Tampa Bay and not because I'm now 18-5 in Super Bowls, which also tells you that I'm not 20 years old anymore. But the Tampa Bay Bucks defense, if you could see the report that I gave to the clients for the premium service, it was all about that. And the media all week long was offense, offense, offense. Mahomes versus Brady. Is Brady going to be able to stay up with him? And I never in a million years thought Kansas City would be held without a touchdown, which was 50 to 1 odds in the prop market. But they were. And that defense, Todd Bowles should have got the MVP, but as we know, coaches can't get that award. But another example of the Jets letting go of a coach that probably is pretty damn good and now has a ring. So that too is something, I guess, to mention for that game.
Hey, and for fun, for everybody listening out there, a little New Jersey pride as well. Todd Bowles, Elizabeth, New Jersey native. He coached Elizabeth High School, actually. So, with the connection of Rahway and Elizabeth and the rivalry there and such, I'd said to people, I was like, this was a wild game to look at from a better standpoint. And the more you looked at it, the more things started to add up. Like Mahomes' foot, for example, it's perfect today, given he's having surgery on it. So maybe there was something to it after all, even though it was downplayed heavily. You could see from maybe the first series, John, that his foot was not right. Yeah, he was moving, but every time he tried to dig into the turf, it's like you could see him wince. And that first hit he took, it just didn't look right.
I completely agree. He was also kind of coasting out of bounds on those runs too, and then reaching out like he does with his hand with the ball to get that extra couple yards. But I know there was a lot of complaints about the.
That's where I changed my life bet right there. Right after the first series, I'm like, I looked at the numbers. They had not really changed too much yet. Pretty much were right in line with the original money line and the original totals were. And I hopped on it while I could because it did switch very fast after that first quarter because it was apparent that Kansas City was not scoring very much. They were not hitting the team over at all. They were not coming close. And that game over was dead in the water after the first quarter. I know some people said, oh, maybe it'll bounce back, but you had this feeling.
Yeah, and I actually was planning on doing a halftime show, and I decided that there was absolutely no reason for me to do a halftime show. I had plans to be very, active in the in-game betting, expecting volatility and back and forth action. And from other than the first field goal of 3 points, it was start to finish Bucks, 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 and there was no chance to even entertain the thought of a wise in-game bet. And for that part, it was a boring game, but I watched it all the way to the end. I know some people said it was boring, but they probably bet on Kansas City. But I just thought it was just absolutely amazing in 1 year to take a team that hadn't been in the playoffs for a decade and not just make the playoffs, but go on the road 3 games in a row, win them all, and then host. That's another thing, I guess, in the COVID year. And I think Mercury's in retrograde too. Somebody told me that had something to do with the Blues fluke loss. by the way. It's some kind of astrological alignment of the stars, I guess, that produces really crazy negative
Crazy
events.
backwards results.
Yeah, so I don't know about that part of it, but it was a much bigger margin of victory that I thought either team would get. It's just amazing. And I looked in my database. That was the worst loss of Mahomes' career, and I think everybody probably knows that already. The previous loss margin was only 8 points. And you have to go all the way back to the Texas Tech 2016 season. I think it was week 10. They got shellacked by Iowa State 66-10. So he's gone this whole stretch in the professional level with no worse than an 8-point loss until now. But I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and something that got brought up from, and this is where I love a lot of the fantasy football guys, because they have information that just, I mean, I know there's next gen stats and such, but one of the crazier numbers that came out was this one nugget. Tampa Bay's defense only blitzed 9.6% of the time. It was the lowest percentage that they had all year.
Yep.
Now, you could see even from the first series that though they weren't blitzing, if you looked at their schemes, particularly their linebackers, nickelbacks, and their safeties in particular, there was enough movement at first, but as the game went on, they pretty much stayed mostly in zone to shell coverage, as it's called, and then moved when they had to. It's like they knew where the ball was going to go. They had an idea where Mahomes was going to go with it, and they knew the most important concept in all of this, they knew he was limited.
Yep, no doubt. I remarked the first play of the game was basically a glorified cover 3 that you would use possibly when you're ahead by 21 or more points. And that took away the deep route. And then with the linebacker speed, which I'd mentioned too, that they are probably the fastest unit in the NFL, and probably by a lot. Maybe the Dallas linebackers might be able to challenge that. But nevertheless, Tampa Bay's linebackers were all over Kelsey. And, of course, he felt like he was being interfered with, but I truly didn't see much of that. I thought I saw more frustration out of Kelsey than anything else. And then when the defense of the Chiefs started finger pointing on the field, that's when you knew it was unraveling pretty rapidly. It's a shame it wasn't a back and forth game, but when you have money on the game, you don't mind a game like this once in a while. It applies to all the sports, NBA included, that you get a game that is boring because you were right or boring because you were dead wrong. But you were absolutely right with that blitz percentage, and that was the part of the research I had completely wrong. In the first meeting, they only blitzed 17% of the time for the season. They were number 2 in the NFL, blitzing 39% of the time. And then to blitz as few as they did in the Super Bowl by design. And it might have been because of the tackles. They were missing the tackles, and they were getting pressure on Mahomes very easly with 5 guys. And that really did make the difference, because then they dropped all the linebackers back on Kelsey. And when at the end of the day, and I think it's fair to say, they're a 2-person offense other than Mahomes. Mahomes makes 3. But it's Kelsey, Hill, and they complement each other wonderfully well. But when you take one of them out and you're then able to cover the other one, I mean, that's how you beat Kansas City. I mean, they showed it. Anyway.
And it's funny because the Raiders kind of had the blueprint on this, because if you look at the 2 times that they played KC during the season, their blitz rate was way lower, and they used a lot of the same scheme marking that Tampa Bay used. It's just, actually Tampa Bay executed a little better because, again, they had that linebacker speed that a lot of us honestly underestimated in this game because of the differences between the fields. Look, let's be honest. That field down in Tampa Bay, a little bit of a muddy track from the heavy rain the night before. So that helped too.
Yeah, that's true. That did slow the game down, no question. Well, as I said in yesterday's show, I had a great time. I probably ate too much, but you know, I can't wait for the next one, which will probably be more of the same names that we saw this year. It's interesting that in our neck of the woods here in the good old Northeast, the conversation really caught fire with Carson Wentz. And wouldn't it be something if he did go to Chicago, um, and Foles returned to Philadelphia? That would be unbelievable. And if the trades that you're hearing, or at least the ones I'm hearing as rumors, come through for Philly, they actually will make out pretty good as long as they get those two number ones, even if they're spaced out 3 years apart. And I think that would be good for everybody involved. We'll have to wait and see. I didn't see any news today of any developments. I don't know if you did.
Not yet. That's going to be something that we might have to wait a little bit on, just because there's a few things that have to be shaken out first, as far as not even as money, but just in general as the compensation.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Eagles' finances were kind of run poorly, kind of like the state of California, for example. So they're in a horrible luxury tax situation. And I do think, if I'm right with this, I mean, it's really complicated law when you really get down to it, that if they trade Wentz, they're still going to be on the hook for the $36 million in terms of luxury tax.
Amazingly, yes.
Not that they have to pay it out. It's just that will count towards the cap, which straps them from doing anything further. So it's going to be a project. Maybe they can, trust the process with the Sixers seem to work now. Maybe they start that with the Eagles. But why don't we move over to your favorite thing to talk about, and that's the NHL. I know we were talking about the Pittsburgh, New Jersey game, but unfortunately that's been postponed. I had a tremendous system on Philly over Washington. It would have been on Philadelphia. That's been postponed. St. Louis, Minnesota is postponed. And Arizona, Colorado is postponed. But we still have 7 games to talk about. So why don't we start with one of your favorites?
Yeah, this would have been a fun slate. You figure this would have been about a 10 or 11 game slate if we didn't have all the postponements on Tuesday night. But nonetheless, look, this isn't so bad. Now, here's the thing: you're going to have a balanced schedule the rest of the week, which is nice. Usually we don't in the NHL this time of year. It's usually there's either 13 or 14 games, or it's a couple, and that will drive people nuts. But tonight we have quite a few in the proverbial slate, including a battle in Southern California between the San Jose Sharks and the LA Kings. Doesn't sound exciting, I know. They're two pretty awful teams, but, and this is the key point in this, 8 of the last 10 games between these two teams, no matter how bad they've been, has hit the over. And not just 5.5, but 6.5. And if you go back to the one that was 5.5, it's 9 out of 10. So this is something that people should probably keep an eye on. You have 2 goalies that are horrendous in net, and that's the kind way of saying it. For those that don't know, as far as advanced stats, goals saved above average, these are 2 of the worst 10 in the entire National Hockey League. Now, that's including some backup goalies, too. So we're looking at like 40, 45 goalies. You're looking at the bottom 20, 25%. If you look at their numbers combined from a real rudimentary standpoint, guess how many goals they give up combined? Right around 7.
That's amazing.
it is uncanny. A lot of the numbers align with each other tonight in a very easy way. And I love how both teams are saying, oh, they're more comfortable in their systems, and they're saying all the right things, but they're still bad defensively. There's just no way around this. And the good news for people is you can feast on this at least right now because of all those postponements. So there will be more. There'll be a little more action to it, and that may help you even live game. If God forbid, say it starts out a little bit slow, you may be able to pounce on the numbers that you wouldn't be able to normally, because honestly, on an 11-game slate, no one would be paying attention to a game like this.
That's a good point. I'm just looking at power play percentages, and it definitely favors more like almost like a 6-4 type of result.
It does. Now, will it have like that, like what we saw Sunday with a couple of the games, like particularly the Philly-Washington game and then the Columbus-Carolina game, which people might be talking about that one as a bad beat for quite a while too, just because they had a goal, went to Toronto, probably shouldn't have counted. Somehow Toronto said it was okay, even though it clearly wasn't. And Carolina won as a result. So there was a lot of Columbus backers that definitely, they had the plus money. They had the process right. But unfortunately, John, again, sometimes it just does not go the way it's supposed to.
So I'm going to have to put some cartoon characters of a dog and a fire hydrant. So when we have these bad beats, I can flash them onto the screen as, the fire hydrant. Just for fun, just to kind of take the tension away from these. When you're right, and you don't get any money back because you actually didn't win. But I'm just curious here too. I was thinking of this as a topic of discussion in high-powered offenses. If I told you based on my power ratings, my top 5 were Tampa Bay, obviously, then Boston, Montreal, Vegas, Colorado. Would you agree or disagree with that? And would teams like Toronto, Dallas, Carolina, Calgary, even the Flyers, Winnipeg maybe, would they be in your top 5?
Toronto is in my top 5 for this reason. Their power play is probably the most consistent out of any of the top 5 ranked power plays right now in the league. It's not a fluke. Where Dallas has probably feasted off the tip drill from Joe Pavelski more often than I've ever seen a player in the first few weeks of the season. It's incredible. This was a guy that could not tip a puck into the net for the life of him the first few months of last season. And it is the exact polar opposite. So they're right up there. Now, there's a few teams where you sit there and go, this could be rough. And Colorado is one of them right now. And it's more than just not having Nathan McKinnon in the lineup. It's just inevitable regression. You have a lot of younger players, and you do have a team that relies a little bit more on their defense or offense than most expect. So when they're not rushing,
dead last in penalty kill.
That's the problem.
It's the Colorado Avalanche.
It's pretty
actually,
crazy.
The penalty kill is 89.7% allowed. Yeah. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's something to look at. Now, here's the thing, though. Now, obviously, Tampa Bay has a balanced, stacked offense. It doesn't matter that Nikita Kucherov's not in the lineup because, well, magically Anthony Cirelli has stepped in, and people are like, who? Well, this is a player that came up to their rank, broke out last year, has good hands, is quick in front of the net, is not, unlike Kucherov, not afraid to get hit in front of the net. and has an above average shot from distance, which is not say from 60 feet, but say that 25 to 35-foot range, which is kind of a sweet spot for guys with above average one-timers and wrist shots. He's beasted. I'm playing in the division that they're in right now, the Central, like no one I've seen other than maybe Tyler Toffoli loving the Vancouver Canucks. There's few more better loves than that. But that added goal boost right there, along with Tampa's schedule, which has been a little uneven, but it's helped them. Remember, they had that rest when other teams like Florida were delayed, Dallas was delayed, and they happened to go right down the line and time those delays just right. Yeah, they'll have to play a few more games later, but they're going to be way better rested than, say, I don't know, Minnesota whenever they come back, a Buffalo when they come back, and especially in New Jersey whenever they come back, because nobody knows. That's a story in probably itself that you could take 30, 40 minutes on here and tell. But that's something to look at. So that's why when I look at top 5 offenses, I'm not just looking at them now, John, but I'm looking at them a little bit down the road because of this compressed schedule.
Makes total sense to me. I want to make sure I said what I said correctly, and I don't think I did. Colorado Avalanche actually have the best penalty kill percentage at almost 90%. And then Boston is second at 87.8. And then a bunch of teams in the 86 range. But 89% is just kind of a ridiculous, maybe unsustainable level, but it's still quite good. And it probably doesn't regress very much. And then in power play percentage, they are 8th at scoring a goal with a man advantage 27% of the time. So it's... now that I said that dovetails into everything that you just said about the team.
Yeah, they're able to hold it together.
Do you think Colorado would be a team to have on the radar for look-ahead games? In other words, if you get a good price, say maybe just as an underdog at some situation, that would probably represent a good starting point for a possible bet?
It's an absolute starting point for a bet. Now, the other thing that you can time too is whenever Nathan McKinnon does come back from his injury. Right now, it's a week-to-week thing, which means it's a gray area, honestly, for bettors. And it always is when you're looking. It's like, can I time this? Can I time? I mean, quick side example, real fast. Vegas Golden Knights tonight. Alex Pietrangelo was taken off the COVID protocol. So he went from out to potentially in to out again to doubtful to a game time decision for about 30 seconds, and now he's out. So you're going to have to watch for this situation with McKinnon, because McKinnon is the type of guy that this could be more of a Sean Couturier situation, where Couturier on Sunday, nobody was sure, and then all of a sudden he comes to morning skate and goes, okay, I'm ready, let's go. And 10 minutes later, here he is playing in the 12 o'clock game against Washington. So that is the scenario that's very possible with McKinnon. You should be on it and aware of it, because if you can time it right, that's where you can get that plus money that a lot of bettors will miss out on.
Yeah, that's a critical thing. I know you agree that when you bet the money line sports of Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League, you must, it's imperative to play a majority of dogs and avoid playing those minus 300 favorites, because they don't always win. And if the math teaches you anything, if you lose a minus 300 game, for those that are new to betting, you then have to win 4 in a row to offset that loss. And winning 4 in a row, even though if you look at my current streaks, the last 25, last 50, approaching 70%, some are at 70%, you know, it nobody knows if that's going to be sustainable. And to win just 4 in a row is quite an accomplishment. But as you know, as we always say, we just take it one day at a time. You grind it out. You know, some day, like you say, some days you're gonna be the dog, some days you're the hydrant. But at the end of the season, you're a winner, and that's part of it. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I watched a guy last night and this guy is normally around 60-65%. 2-8-1 last night.
whew,
I mean, he just took a
man,
bath.
that is
Yeah, and look, I love Philly Pete. He is one of the best locally up here. And like he said to me, he's like, that St. Louis game was just the icing on the death. And it was just nope, done. He's like, I turned the TV off. I just walked away.
oh man.
I waited about 12 hours, did my show today, and that was it. He's like, you just.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It's just like you just take a piece of paper, crumble it up, throw it in the trash can, on to the next.
On a side note, one of the guys watching us here in the chat room, Canada Beaver 99, I'm not sure what he's saying. Wentz going to Bellator? Bellator announcing the news today?
Yeah, there's some fun.
Huh.
Hey, might have to after this.
Well,
Take a look. The thing with Carson Wentz is this: he had a concussion that he never really recovered from,
true.
and then basically inherits an offensive line that can't block for the life of him. So it's quite an experience to go from a line that insulates you well to where you're running for your life every 2 seconds. And you could see a lot of decisions being made during the season. I forget which Twitter account amusingly had a video compilation of all his interceptions. And at least 2/3 of them, you could see the pattern where it was as if he expected a rush to come that did not. And that's when the mistakes came.
Yep. No doubt. No doubt. But I think, he needs a fresh start. I still think he has potential to be an excellent NFL quarterback. It just can't be in Philadelphia anymore.
No.
So what other game do you want to talk about in the NHL?
All right, let's have some fun with this because, look, this let a lot of people down last night, and it hurt. Edmonton and Ottawa had goaltending last night. What was this? I mean, people sat there and they're like, okay, Connor McDavid has a point. Okay, normal. That's it. What do you mean that they needed an empty net goal just to get the 3? Because Edmonton's team over was 3.5 last night, John. You want to see people get really mad. Now, I'd say, remember your 70-second joke before the start of the show. Edmonton scores about 70 seconds left, makes it 3-1. Ottawa pulls the goalie again. The people on live betting, which was a smart move, and then nothing happened. I mean, nothing. I mean, there weren't much in the way of chances. It wasn't like Edmonton came close. That last 70 seconds was just a glorified dog and pony ride, and they were just coasting their way to victory. And
I had a buddy that thought Edmonton could score 7 goals last night on their own merit. And they probably should. I mean, the matchup told you it was going to be...
it was there.
Yeah.
Now, Hogberg is starting tonight for Ottawa. He's a walking RBS, as we like to call it, a really bad start. Simple way to explain what a really bad start is a save percentage of .850 or less in a game, combined with allowing 3 goals or more. And This guy is the king. So, of course, what will happen tonight is probably another like 3-1 game, and people will just be like, come on, I give up. But the expectation is this could be the reverse of a trend that we've seen a lot in the NHL with the second game of these back-to-back miniseries where the scoring goes down. In this case, the scoring may just go up because the goaltenders are worse. So Ottawa's basic tendency is going to be shoot glove side on Koskinen. Mikko Koskinen, out of the 5 goals he gave up on Saturday night in Calgary, 4 of them were glove side and rather easily. So there's that. There's the potential of this definitely hitting the over. And for the fun of it, I am not touching the money line or puck line with a 10-foot pole on this one because there is no way to trust Edmonton.
I agree with that. I mean, I see enough L's on their ledger.
Yeah, it's not worth it to try to go to. If you're going to go on a money or a puck line, I would definitely look somewhere else for plus value instead. And the simple reason is the most obvious. People will be most on Edmonton regardless, just because of the matchup. I watched it swing, John. They're not the biggest favorites right now, depending on which book you run around to. That would belong actually to Vegas, of course.
Yep.
So if you're looking around plus money tonight, maybe Nashville. Maybe they turn it around a little bit. Puck line wise, do you gamble Dallas, especially after the clunker they had? In what I like to call the hangover after Super Bowl Sunday. Those are things that people have to think about tonight in the NHL. And of course, there's one more. My prop bet. Philip Forsberg over 0.5 points. Write it down somewhere.
I'm definitely doing that. We'll make this one of our official plays on the show.
I figure why not at this point?
So Forsberg over.
Yep, 0.5 points.
All right, got it.
Yeah, Nashville's might surprise a few people tonight just because after last night's game, there was some talk that even their coach may get fired. He wasn't exactly made available to the media right away afterwards, and there was at least some talk of possibility of a change. That did not happen. And their captain, Roman Josi, was pretty understandably heaved. That's a nice way to put it. Lots of words being tossed around that you couldn't repeat to your kid. But the idea behind it is they should come out at least a little bit of a different team tonight. They were so lifeless last night. And that frustrated the living daylights out of bettors as well, because they were expecting goals in that game, and it didn't happen.
It's a pretty good system I have here that supports Nashville. Actually, I have quite a few of them. Let me just read one of them. This one has made the $100 better. About $4,200 in profits over the last 5 seasons. So if you bet this $100 a game, or match, I should say, in hockey, you'd be pretty happy. So it hits 65% of the time when you play against road teams using the money line, and that would be Tampa Bay after 2 straight wins by 2 goals or more, facing an opponent after a loss of 2 goals or more in their previous game. So obviously this is the second of the back-to-back, I believe. And another one here is it's averaged a money line of plus 144. It's made $3,500 for the $100 better over a much longer time period, but nevertheless still valid. 50-33 record, play against road favorites against the money line, outscoring their opponents by at least 0.3 goals per game after 4 straight wins by 2 goals or more. So that's, if there was ever a reversion to the mean betting system, this would be it. A very good team running hot, and then all of a sudden they hit that proverbial wall. So I do like this game, Chris. So I think we should put this down as a game, a show best bet with Nashville. I'm seeing plus 155 right now, and there's a mountain of public money going on Tampa Bay, and I think blindly thinking that after last night, which amateur bettors are prone to recency, it's what have you done most recently, and if you sucked recently, then you're gonna obviously suck again tonight. And I think this is a very crafty, intelligent play on the dog on Nashville. So we'll make that one an official one too.
It's the old, hey, this is a good process play, and usually with these, you're going to hit more than you miss.
I was going to say too, in that Edmonton-Ottawa game, there's one of those trends where the coach of Edmonton's 9-1 on back-to-back nights. Now that's one of those that we've discussed on the show that you should not fall into the trap of believing that it's going to go to 10-1, because the p-value, which is I refer to as a z-score on steroids, it tells you how the parameters of a betting system or trend are correlating and working together. And in this case, it's almost pure random that this trend has gone up as high as it has to 9-1, and it actually, mathematically speaking, actually supports Ottawa. So, I don't want to throw any money at the game, but just as a case study in point, let's see if Ottawa does win the game, because then that would confirm that 9-1 record on back-to-back nights was just nonsense.
Yeah, I mean,
so those are the ones that are that, especially new people that are betting, looking for information. A lot of times you can get it from the sports book you go to, but they're going to give you the generic ones just like that. In baseball, you're going to see the Phillies are 10-2 on Saturday day games. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It truly does not mean a thing. But I won't start speaking about that at length. I'll save that for another time. But is that everything in hockey on your end?
Pretty much, because like I've said to people, this is kind of a light to medium slate, which is more the theme this week partly because of the postponements. Tomorrow is interesting. You mentioned Boston. I guess now you want to see a wild recency bias of recency biases. They play the Rangers tomorrow.
Yep.
In MSG.
I'm looking right at the board.
They own MSG. Legitimately.
Yep.
This is a team that often beats the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. What do you do? I mean, do you sit there and go, do you give into it? There's some concerns involved. Tuukka Rask has had a bit of an up and down year. Don't look at the record. Don't do that yet. It's a small sample size, but the save percentage and his rebound control have been a little bit off. So this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I could win with Boston, sure. But do I risk it? And this is the kind of slate where it's like there's only 2 games on Wednesday, and I want people to be aware that maybe you should take a look jokingly at that Austin Matthews prop. Can he extend that goal scoring streak to 9 games in a row on Wednesday night, or looking more towards a high scoring game there instead of going what looks like the safer bet, which is definitely Boston. The money will be on Boston tomorrow, or at least it should be based on, again, amateur betting.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now already. That's Well, it's lined at 4 of them on the board here at Wager Talk already, and the
Yeah, I can see
percentages
that. I
are.
can see it blinking around. It's like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, so that's probably one that you would want to bet now if you like Boston because it's more likely to go to 160 than it is to 140.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate if that's what you're in on, then you go now because it won't be that tomorrow.
I'm just looking at the database here. There's some pretty powerful systems too that are on Boston. Playing on road favorites, outscoring their opponents by 0.65 or more goals per game, which is a ton. After allowing 1 goal or less in their previous game, are 74 and 30 for 71% winners last 5 seasons, making almost $3,000 for the $100 better of that 5-year period. That's pretty outstanding.
Yeah, remember this is a team last year that on the road almost outscored their opponents at one point by a full goal a game. That's not at home. That's on the road. That's a number that you don't see very often. I mean, Tampa Bay a few years ago did that, but not at the defensive acumen of a Boston.
Yep.
Tampa was scoring like 3.6, 3.7 a game and allowing like about 2.8. Boston was scoring at like around 3 and allowing a hair less than 2. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Even if
they are pretty good.
You see the numbers a little bit and say, okay, well, you adjust them for home and road. Remember, a lot of these games were with a home crowd, and it does make a little bit of a difference. And Boston was able to do that last year. And they've continued to do it so far this year even.
I'm just noticing here they looks like they carry 4 different goalies.
Yes. They have to. They have to because of you have to have a third goalie for the taxi squad, and really the fourth just in case of Halak and Rask have been a little bit banged up. Very minor nicks, bumps and bites, as I like to call it. But that makes you have to carry that occasional fourth goalie just lingering around, in their case, the Providence area. So
Rask is really good. Last 4 games, 90.2% save percentage, 92 saves on 102 shots. 90% versus the division. He's 5-2, both straight up and ATS. So there's another thought. So that means I like this idea that I just put in my head. I would bet 65% on the money line, 35% on the 1.5 goal line, the puck line.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing the puck line right now, but I'd be willing to bet that it's probably plus money by a little bit, maybe plus 115. I'm guessing.
Yeah, a little. That may be one of the few that comes back to even, but we'll see. I mean, you never quite know. You might see a little bit of a backlash the other way, but right now I don't expect there to be much of it.
So plus minus 1.5 is actually, look at that, plus 165.
Wow, I'm surprised it's that high.
So the market's telling us that, well, pricing of this is telling us that they're expecting a 3-2, 4-3 game in favor of Boston.
Yep.
Well, I like the minus 1.5 even better now.
Now it's like, because I think in that case it'll definitely back up.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If you're going to bet the game, you can maybe wait a little bit on the money line, but get this right away.
Yeah, this is one you want to hit on.
The plus 1.5.
The money line you don't want to wait too long on, but you have time. I mean, probably a little bit after tonight's games, maybe early in the morning before morning skate. That's your window. But
Yep.
That puck line is.
Yeah, it's juicy. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's just wow. Yeah, I'm glad we looked ahead there. That's excellent. And then the Toronto Montreal game. I'll go back to the money line here. Yeah, it's basically pick them right across the board.
Yeah, that's almost always a pick-em game. The last year and a half, it's been that way.
But that's two really good matchups among playoff contenders for sure, and also Stanley Cup contenders. So that's a pretty good day for hockey with the two games on the slate. It's a shame they both start at the same time.
Yeah, especially Toronto Montreal. That's going to be an excellent game just to see if Montreal can bounce back from a little bit of a rough patch, and then see if Toronto can just keep scoring.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be fun to watch for sure. Yeah. Anything else in the hockey, or do you want to do a quick NBA or college game? There was one college game I was going to mention.
Yeah, let's do the one college game, because that sounded like a lot of fun.
Well, in the college, most everybody knows I like the Big Ten and the SEC conferences probably the most, and then Big East as the third. Then I study those three arguably the most. But I think tonight you have an exceptional opportunity with a Penn State team on the road at Michigan State. With all due respect, Tom Izzo is a legendary coach, but in recent years, the recruiting or the matchups in the game, something isn't working right, and they're not near the type of intimidating team that they once were. Penn State has gone through the gauntlet, and actually on my strength of schedule rankings of 357 Division I basketball programs, they are ranking number 1 entering this week. So they have gone through the toughest part you could possibly go through in the Big Ten, and now they actually have a chance to potentially win out. And if they win out and at least win the first 2 games of the Big Ten tournament, I think they're in. And it's possible, like last year, there was no doubt in my mind, 10 teams from the Big Ten, which by the way has 14 teams, not 10, would be going to the big dance, and they have a chance to pull it off again this year. So the last I saw at the line was early this morning. I grabbed Penn State at +3, 3.5, I think is what it actually was, but I'm willing to bet that it might be just a little bit higher. Because my thing was the public would be all over Michigan State being at home, a must win. Penn State has a losing record, so here we are. It's up to 4, so that is not surprising. It may get to 4.5 by 7:00 game time, so you could probably wait. But this is definitely a game now where you sprinkle some on the money line. So do 85% with the spread, 15% on the money line, and if you do that every single time with these dogs, it's going to pay off at the end of the season. And that much I can tell you. I don't know if Penn State's going to win tonight or not. I had no clue that University of Tennessee Martinsville was actually going to win the game, but I felt good about saying it. And this one is even better than the UT-Martinsville last night. Penn State, on any measure, is the better team on both ends of the court, and you're getting a dog, granted on the road, but there's no fans. That's the better team, and I just think this is just a tremendous opportunity. But with that said, you don't bet above your normal bet. If you bet $50 a game, that's what you bet on this tonight. That's the most important thing I can help to teach new bettors that are just starting out. It requires immense discipline. But in having immense discipline, then you guarantee yourself that you're going to have fun with it for years and years and years to come. So many people start out, they get $5,000, they think they're going to turn it into 100, and it's just like the stock market where I worked on Wall Street for the better part of 18 years. it doesn't work that way. You got to learn and learn and learn every single day. And the best way of learning is by failing. So when you do have a bet that doesn't quite work out, look at it and figure out what it was that you might have missed in the handicap. Now, obviously, the St. Louis Blues, which I'll never forget as long as I live, that's not one to analyze. That's one to just put in the rearview mirror. That's a strikeout in baseball. You go back to the dugout, you regroup, and you come back out and give it a shot again the next time you're at bat. So I like Penn State tonight. Chris, do you agree with me?
Yeah, I've been on Penn State for a while, and people often don't realize this. Having a little bit of expertise on the downside of dynasties or good runs, and you look at Michigan State and go, for as good as it's been, this is it. It's not going to get any better, and there's no fans. Somehow this number is still trying to get to 4.5 as hard as it possibly can. And even if it doesn't, I would have been happy at +3 or +4, either way, because it's one of those games where I think Penn State probably can win straight up.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, I'm with you. Kevin Riley here in the chat room, nice enough to say that unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, he lives in Michigan, but he's probably a Michigan or Michigan State fan. If he's a Michigan State fan, then I think that team is in trouble. But everybody in that area, and that stands to reason. It's just like in Philadelphia, people will bet Temple, Villanova, especially Villanova.
Yeah.
And whatever area you're in, you almost have to take those consensus numbers and strike a line through them. It's better to use the national books, which we have here on the screen, that have presence in every legal state that we have going on right now. So that's a difficult thing to do because everybody's going to think Michigan State's going to crush Penn State, and this is a very short line, and Michigan State will win by 10 because Penn State's not that good. Look at their record. But believe me, Penn State's one of the best even record teams I can recall in the Big Ten in a while. So if they they love to shoot the three. They're one of the top offenses in the country, believe it or not. I think in my notes, I have them ranked 12th. 14th. Penn State offense is 14th nationally in terms of offensive efficiency. And the Michigan State defense, although ranks 45th nationally, they're just erratic. They're one of the most inconsistent teams in the nation. So overall, Penn State ranks 44th, and Michigan State is 60th nationally, and that's where I get both sides. I get a team that's better on both sides of the court. So I got to go with them, and hopefully this one will be right.
Yeah, this one does look good. I mean, there's too much in the way of offensive efficiency difference that you couldn't think of. Now, look, if there were fans involved, I would be a little more hesitant. But this does make a little bit of difference, and usually just enough, at least from what I've seen in the last year, to make it worth betting on.
Yep. So we'll put that one down as an official bet. Penn State plus the points and a sprinkle on the money line. And then to finish up the show, Chris, I was going to talk about the second game of Golden State at San Antonio, which has had a very interesting road trip. They've played, this is their fourth game of a 4-game road trip, and they've stopped at 2 places. So this has never happened in NBA history. It's because of the COVID. But they played Dallas twice, and last night they lost to San Antonio, which was one of my premium plays. And I wanted to take a look at this game just to see what you thought and actually what the game was speaking to me. Like, can Golden State come back? I've been in the camp that Curry cannot keep up this pace of play, even though he's incredibly talented, one of the best shooters we've ever seen. He's obviously missing his former comrades. Clay especially. who's still on the team but suffering from just a multitude of injuries that nobody should have to go through, but unfortunately he is. But in this game, I think I'm on San Antonio again because I have Golden State as pretty rich in price right now, and I get a chance to buy a San Antonio team that I think is flying under the radar, kind of much like Milwaukee was 5 games ago before they ripped off 5 in a row. And I was fortunate enough to get on that train. And I think San Antonio right now is coming together, and Golden State, I think it's awesome that they're 500. But I don't know if that is going to be sustainable, and I don't think it will be. And they have to be tired having played these 4 road games as close together as they have. So I like San Antonio, and if you do, Chris, then we'll make that the play in the NBA for today for the show.
Yeah, that's one that I look keenly at. Even last night, it's like, wow, they're still getting a couple sites. I'm looking +1, +1.5. I'm like, still. I mean, I know. Look, Curry is unbelievable. Almost. Best way to explain this is for those in my generation. It would be like the guy in Dune with the chainsaw in Berserker God mode, where literally everything he touches goes in.
Yeah, it is amazing. You're right. That's a great analogy.
I can't believe it, what I'm watching. And at the same time, this Spurs team, somehow they've kind of been fostered and built right in a way that they've been set up for this type of environment without fans, and they're starting to come together. They're balanced enough that they can absorb these efforts from Stephen Kerr.
Yeah.
That and of course the fundamental theory of road trips, the getaway day, the last game of the road trip where the team's looking at going home and just be like, you know what, we're tired.
Yep, I agree with that fact too. Absolutely. It's just what I've seen with the Spurs is they have upped the tempo here during this 3-game win streak by a lot. Almost to the point of being like a Golden State, who I believe does lead the league in pace. But I'd have to look that up to be sure. But over the last 3 games here, San Antonio's attempted 96 shots in their last game. That was Golden State last night. 87 at Houston, 96 Minnesota, 89 Memphis, 83, 81. It's obvious that they made a decision to pick up the tempo and get after it. And so far it's paying off. And that, up tempo against a tired team usually ends up being a 20-point win. So I do like San Antonio quite a bit here with this second of 2 on back-to-back nights.
Could really benefit out of this.
Yep. So that'll wrap it up to recap our plays. We have San Antonio, and we're using the closing line for those that are new to the show. To be fair, I think it seems ridiculous that we would be on a live show and acting like we're betting the game live when everybody else, the majority of people, are still up, doing their day job, and then we'll listen to this in an archived fashion, after work, before the games start. So we're going to use the closing line for it. What was the Forsberg bet again? I can't read my writing.
Over 0.5 points.
Got it. So that, okay. And then we'll figure out what that line is once the game starts. Nashville plus 155 as of now. Then we have Boston tomorrow using a combination of the money line and puck line. The puck line we recommended betting now or whenever you're listening to the show. Hopefully it's still at plus 165. And then we have Penn State plus 4 points, sprinkling the money line 2. And then we have San Antonio, which presently I think is favored by, actually they're a 1-point dog.
Yeah, they're still a 1-point dog right now.
I mean, that's just...
It was 1.5 this morning. It's still 1, so.
And, I mean, the money, wow. I mean, look at the money on the screen there, if I still have it up there. It looks like it says 81% of the money is on Golden State and 69% of the tickets. I don't see that. You know, granted, I'm not always right, but I don't agree with that. So, you know, I'm just taking it, man. I don't know what else to say. It's like a game. It's another bet. It's going to win or lose, but at least there's a lot of information that we have uncovered that supports the reason to do the bet, and that's the most important thing. Now, Kevin Riley updated us here. I will end the show with this one. He says, I'm not a Michigan State fan. They are a terrible team. And then he goes on to say, oh, Brady. Oh, so they actually watched Brady in college when he was, how would you describe it, portly?
Portly, yeah, it was a little portly. The shape that he's in now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like me. Just, I was portly in college, to say the least.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But now, Kevin and the rest of the chat room knows that we are on Penn State, and regardless of, no matter where anyone in the chat room lives, we're on Penn State. Anything else, Chris, before we end the show today? I really appreciate you being on the show and all the time you've spent today with me and our chat room friends. You know, it's just awesome. We're growing by leaps and bounds every single week, and it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Look, this is a lot of fun. You know, for people that, you know, yeah, it's work. But at the same time, it's fun because we're not here learning the things that we need to learn. You're not learning the things that we may be able to even get off of people in the chat room because, look, we don't know everything. And this is a unique time when it comes to sports betting. It's that simple.
It truly is. Well, with that, we'll conclude today's episode of the Predictive Playbook. I am John Ryan. I can be found at John Ryan Sports and the number 1 as seen on the screen. And then Chris Wassel, DFS, is his handle at Twitter. Of course, you have to put the @ sign in front of it. So I really appreciate everybody coming in to watch today's show. And as I always like to say, may all the wins be yours. We'll see you tomorrow.